Wondered how to navigate the intricate web of compliance processes while maintaining top-tier security for your notarial records? The solution is closer than you think. Introducing Comply Chain Guard, or CGG, a platform designed specifically for civil law notaries. CCG merges the complex chain of compliance processes with unrivaled protective measures. It enables you to stride confidently through the multifaceted terrain of regulations while ensuring paramount security for your records, deeds, and transactions. CCG boasts a regulatory compliance engine that keeps you updated with real-time insights tailored to civil law regulations. It effortlessly integrates with legal databases and ensures automated compliance checks for all notarial deeds and transactions. But that's not all. CCG also features advanced encryption to safeguard your notarial records. You'll benefit from multi-factor authentication and periodic security assessments, upholding the sanctity of every notarial act. Plus, with continuous transaction monitoring, you'll receive alerts for any discrepancies and comprehensive logs for traceability. And when it comes to reporting and analytics, CCG generates automated compliance reports specific to notarial acts. Dive into our analytics dashboard for transaction patterns and predictive insights. Why choose CCG? It brings efficiency, security, and compliance to your fingertips, allowing you to operate with unmatched confidence and credibility. CCG integrates effortlessly with your notarial record-keeping systems. Our API facilitates bespoke integrations, ensuring compatibility with major legal platforms and databases. And remember, our dedicated support is here to assist you every step of the way. CGG is the future of notarial practices. It redefines your work, ensuring accuracy, credibility, and peace of mind. It's a transformative experience tailored for civil law notaries. Don't wait. Contact Comply Chain Guard for a demo or more information. Step into the future of notarial practices. Your journey to seamless compliance and robust security starts with CCG.
Have you ever pondered the integral role of truth and transparency in legal transactions? Indeed, these principles form the very bedrock of justice and fairness. In the realm of affidavits, truth and transparency are paramount. They are the compass guiding the navigation of complex legal waters. But how can we ensure these principles are upheld consistently and efficiently? Enter Affinet, the affidavit network. Affinet is a groundbreaking platform designed with sovereigns, legal professionals, and businesses in mind. It is a one-stop solution for creating, verifying, and recording truth affidavits. This ensures a seamless and trustworthy experience for all parties involved. Why choose Affinet? Integrity, efficiency, security, and expertise. Our platform is built on the principle of truth, fostering transparency in each transaction. Record your affidavits with ease and access them anytime, anywhere. With state-of-the-art encryption, your documents remain confidential and secure. Plus, our team of legal professionals is always on hand to assist and guide you. Let's delve deeper into the features of Affinet. Draft your affidavits online using our user-friendly interface. Ensure the authenticity of your documents with our robust verification system. Record your affidavits in county records or publish them as required, thanks to our seamless integration with the public record. Track the status of your affidavits and receive notifications on any challenges or updates with our case management feature. Affinet is also compliant with RSIA, the Arbitration Registry Investment System Artificial Intelligence. This ensures we uphold the highest standards in the creation and verification of truth affidavits. What exactly is a truth affidavit? It's a formal written statement made under oath, asserting the veracity of specific facts. All affidavits are inherently considered to be truth affidavits, as they are the primary means for a sovereign to communicate with another sovereign or government entity. Affidavits play a crucial role in common law. They present only facts that the author can prove and are primarily used in commercial transactions and disputes. When recorded in county records, they become part of public policy and establish the facts of a case. If unchallenged for 30 days post-recording, they become the law of the case. It's essential to remember that public policy is established for public officials, not sovereigns. Sovereigns operate in the private domain, while the government operates publicly. Affinet simplifies the process of using affidavits in corporate courts. Record the affidavit in the county record, obtain 3 certified copies from the county clerk, and submit 1 copy to the court records. Present 1 copy to the plaintiff and another to the judge during court proceedings. As the author of the affidavit, you become the creditor or secured party in the case, and the case cannot proceed until your affidavit is challenged. A truth affidavit must be truthful and complete. It should clearly identify the author as a sovereign private person, living sole, creditor, claimant, and secured party. The affidavit should only state facts that are irrefutable. In conclusion, Affinet is your trusted partner in truthful transactions. For your next affidavit, give Affinet a try. Experience the difference of a platform built on the principles of truth and transparency. Affinet, your partner in integrity.
All right, so get this. We're going deep today into a world where insurance paperwork, right? It's not just about filing those claims. It's like having this powerful financial tool, Accord forms, we're talking reinsurance, and something called syntactical trust.
Yeah, it sounds pretty complex.
It does.
But the fascinating part is how all these different pieces, they all fit together, and it creates a system that really, underpins a huge part of the financial world, and most people have no idea this even exists.
So you've been going through all this dense material, articles, guides, even a YouTube video from an expert who really breaks this down.
Yeah.
So let's make sense of it all for everyone out there. Where do we even begin with all this?
Well, I think a good place to start is with something that we're all, pretty familiar with. Insurance forms.
Right.
But with Accord forms, they're a little different. They're standardized, used nationwide in the US, and they even have specific versions for each state. Think of it like property loss notices or liability claims, those sorts of things.
Okay, so standard forms, got it.
Yeah.
But the sources you were sharing suggest that these forms they're somehow linked to reinsurance, especially during arbitration.
Right.
How does that even work?
That's where it starts to get, really interesting. So reinsurance, it's basically when you have one insurance company and they're transferring some of the risk to another insurance company, it's like a backup plan.
Gotcha.
But these Accord forms during arbitration, it seems that they act as a trigger for this reinsurance process.
A trigger, so it's not like a separate reinsurance contract. The form itself is what initiates it.
That's what the sources are indicating, yeah.
Wow.
And it seems to be connected to how these forms are structured, like the specific data points that they're capturing. There's a level of detail there that goes beyond just documenting a claim.
So that makes me think of that syntactical trust training that was mentioned in one of the articles. It was talking about software that analyzes these to assess financial risk.
Right.
Is that connected to this reinsurance trigger?
It seems so. The software most likely using complex algorithms and analyzing specific data within the forms determines the level of risk and potentially even the amount of reinsurance that might be needed. And here's where it gets even more interesting. This software seems to be linked to the DTCC, the Depository Trust Company.
Cool.
They're a major player in global financial standards.
Wow. So we're going from like a simple insurance form to global financial institutions. There's got to be more to this.
Yeah.
What about the LEI system, the legal entity identifier that was mentioned in the guide?
That's another crucial piece of this puzzle. So the LEI system, it assigns these unique codes to entities that are involved in financial transactions. Essentially, it enables this global financial tracking. And our sources indicate that the LEI system is directly involved in this reinsurance process that's triggered by these Accord forms.
So it's not just about like tracking who's who. It's about managing the financial flow within this reinsurance system.
Exactly. It seems like the LEI system helps ensure that the right financial resources are accessed and transferred when these Accord forms are used during arbitration.
This is starting to feel like we're like uncovering this hidden financial network that's operating like behind the scenes of these like seemingly straightforward insurance processes.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And there's a lot more to unpack here. Remember that YouTube video? You mentioned that YouTube video. Yeah. It goes into some real world examples, like specifically focusing on admiralty claims,
Okay.
which deal with maritime law, ships and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And the expert actually he showed this Accord Form Index.
Yeah.
It's like this massive, massive library of forms for all kinds of different situations.
Yeah, he pointed out like specific forms for things like property loss notices and liability claims in those admiralty cases.
Exactly.
And he even mentioned a statement of no loss form.
Right.
What is that?
It's a way to formally declare that no loss has occurred, particularly important when you're dealing with things like debt cancellation in admiralty cases.
Okay.
But what really stood out to me was how he explained how these forms, when they're used in arbitration for these admiralty claims, they actually become the reinsurance themselves.
So instead of having like a separate reinsurance contract,
Yeah.
the information within the forms is what triggers and defines the reinsurance process.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That's incredible. So what kind of information like makes these forms so powerful?
Well, think about it. They contain details about the parties involved, the nature of the claim, the potential financial liabilities.
Right.
Everything that's needed to assess the risk.
Okay.
And then this data, it feeds into the LEI system and that automated underwriting software that we talked about.
It's all connected. So the forms don't just document the claim; they actually like drive the financial mechanisms behind the scenes.
Right.
This is really interesting.
Yeah, and this expert, he emphasized that the forms are tied to the underwriting software, and they even like populate based on actions taken during the arbitration.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very dynamic process. So the forms, the data, the actions, they all work together to determine the financial outcome, including how much reinsurance is accessed. And then the syntactical trust training, it's likely teaching people how to navigate this whole process.
Yeah, and he mentioned even more like in-depth training levels, especially for those working on syntactical trust banking in the Box platform.
Yeah.
What are those?
It sounds incredibly advanced, It suggests that this whole system is becoming even more, sophisticated and perhaps even automated to a certain degree. It's like taking all this complexity and putting it into this self-contained platform.
This is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But why should like the average person care about all of this?
Well, because, this system, it likely underpins so much of the financial world.
Okay.
From insurance claims to global finance, these forms and these processes, they have this ripple effect throughout the economy. So understanding, how it works, it could give you a significant advantage.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for the financial system.
Exactly.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
It really has.
But it also raises, a lot of questions. Like what are the potential risks of such a complex system? Who benefits and who might be at a disadvantage?
Yeah, those are crucial questions. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
We need to delve deeper into the ethical implications, the potential for manipulation, and the long-term consequences of relying on such a system.
We've uncovered this system where insurance paperwork it becomes like a financial tool.
Yeah.
With global implications.
Yeah.
But it's a bit unsettling to think about, like the potential downsides of all this.
Yeah, it's natural to feel that way.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a system that connects financial instruments to legal processes, there's a need for careful consideration. We've talked about the complexity and the potential for automation, but what about transparency? Like who has access to this information, and are there checks and balances in place?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of power is concentrated in the hands of those who understand this system.
Yeah.
Like those who know how to use these Accord forms and navigate that software.
You're right to point that out. If this system is too opaque, it could create an imbalance of power, particularly during arbitration. The foundations of a fair legal system is that all parties have equal access to information and an understanding of the process.
Right.
And the system, with its specialized knowledge and intricate connections, could potentially undermine that principle.
And what about the long-term implications?
Yeah.
You know, we're increasingly relying on these algorithms and automation.
Right.
But are we fully aware of the potential consequences?
That's a question we need to keep asking. This deep dive, it's revealed a system that's efficient, potentially groundbreaking,
Right.
but it also raises concerns about control, transparency, and the potential for unintended consequences.
It's a reminder that even with all the innovations in finance and technology,
Yeah.
we can't just blindly trust the system, right?
Exactly.
We need to understand it, question it, and make sure that it's used responsibly.
Absolutely. This deep dive has taken us from a simple insurance form to this complex web of financial transactions and global implications.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in, but it's vital information for anyone who's involved in insurance, finance, or even just navigating the legal landscape.
This has been an incredibly thought-provoking deep dive. We started with these insurance forms, and we ended up uncovering a system that touches so many aspects of our lives. It's clear there's a lot more to learn, and we need to keep asking questions about how these systems work, who benefits, and what safeguards are needed. If this deep dive has sparked your interest, I encourage you to do your own research. Look into Accord forms, explore the LEI system, even see if you can find information on syntactical trust training. There's a whole world of knowledge out there just waiting to be uncovered.
The job market of 2025 won't look anything like what we see today. I'm not talking about small changes. I'm talking about a complete transformation that's already happening. And here's the wild thing. The winners won't be exactly who you expect. Let me explain why this matters so much. According to McKinsey's latest research, AI will automate up to 50% of current work activities by 2030. That's not just low-skill jobs. We're talking about highly skilled professionals too. Lawyers, doctors, developers. No specialization is safe. And based on what I'm seeing in my work at First Movers and across multiple industries with total job automation, I think that 50% of current work activities automated by 2030 is incredibly low. I think it will look more like 100% of all office jobs could be automated as soon as 2026. When you can deploy billions of agents to do it faster, cheaper, safer, better, why wouldn't you? But here's where it gets interesting and exciting. While some see this as a threat, I see it as the greatest opportunity of our generation, because AI isn't just replacing jobs. It's creating an entirely new category of professional, the AI generalist, someone who can harness AI to become an army of one. I've seen this transformation firsthand at First Movers, where we're turning entire marketing teams into AI-powered forces for our integration clients. Listen to this. We recently had a brand marketing campaign we flipped from manual to AI-driven, where someone runs the machine we built and publishes the content. The results were absolutely staggering. A 9,900 increase in impressions and reach. That's not a typo. We're talking about essentially 100 times what it was before. That's with a super dialed-in content bot and great processes around it. Think about what this means. We're not just making things more efficient, we're completely rewriting what's possible. Our integration services are helping teams achieve 25x better results, not through massive hiring sprees, but by strategically implementing AI tools and frameworks that turn one person into an entire department. But here's what really gets me excited. This isn't just for big corporations or tech giants. This is democratizing opportunity on a global scale. We're seeing people from third world countries, people who might not even speak perfect English, but have sharp critical thinking skills, step into roles that would have been impossible for them just a few years ago. They're using AI tools to overcome language barriers, automate complex tasks, and run sophisticated campaigns that previously required entire teams. The key to thriving in this new world isn't about becoming a specialist in one area. It's about becoming what I call an AI generalist. Someone who can leverage AI tools across multiple domains. Think about it like this. Instead of spending years becoming an expert in one narrow field, you can use AI to quickly achieve 80% proficiency in multiple areas. Jensen Huang said that our children will never need to program or code, and that the programming language of the future is human. Listen to this clip.
The infrastructure that was used probably 5 years ago is very different to the infrastructure that's being used today. But what Jensen's point was, I think it's a very important point, is NVIDIA has always been relevant. Historically, we see companies that are relevant at one phase of development, and then as the infrastructure changes, they become irrelevant. But you guys were able to innovate and push through. Let's move to a non-AI related topic for a second. I want to talk about education. So today, knowing what you know, seeing what you see, and being at the cutting edge of this technology, what should people focus on when it comes to education? What should they learn? How should they educate their kids and their societies?
Wow, excellent question. I'm going to say something, and it's going to sound completely opposite of what people feel. You probably recall over the course of the last 10 years, 15 years, almost everybody who sits on a stage like this would tell you it is vital that your children learn computer science. Everybody should learn how to program. And in fact, it's almost exactly the opposite. It is our job to create computing technology such that nobody has to program. And that the programming language is human. Everybody in the world is now a programmer. This is the miracle. This is the miracle of artificial intelligence. For the very first time, we have closed the gap. The technology divide has been completely closed. And it's the reason why so many people can engage artificial intelligence. It is the reason why every single government, every single industrial conference, every single company is talking about artificial intelligence today.
There are 4 fundamental powers every AI generalist needs to master. First, the power to build. Using AI-assisted development tools, you can create software and applications without being a coding expert. What used to take months and cost thousands can now be done in days or even hours. Second, the power to automate. This is about creating AI agents and workflows that multiply your productivity. Imagine having digital workers that handle routine tasks 24/7, allowing you to focus on strategic thinking. Third, the power to create. AI tools are democratizing creativity itself. Whether it's design, video, writing, or music, you can now produce professional-grade content in minutes instead of months. And fourth, the power to connect. Using AI-enhanced writing and content tools to build your audience and influence, amplifying your impact far beyond what any individual could achieve alone. The beauty of this transformation is that it's accessible to anyone willing to learn. You don't need an expensive degree or years of specialized training. What you need is the willingness to adapt and embrace these new tools. At First Movers, we're seeing this play out every day. We're helping companies install end-to-end AI integration services that are producing results that seemed impossible just months ago. It's hard to even dream of these possibilities until you see them in action. This isn't about replacing humans. It's about augmenting human capabilities to levels we never thought possible. It's about turning individuals into armies of one and small teams into powerhouses. The future belongs to those who can adapt, who can leverage these AI tools to become more capable, more productive, and more impactful than ever before. The question isn't whether this transformation is coming, it's already here. The question is, will you be ready to take advantage of it? Don't wait for the future to happen to you. Start learning these tools now. Start thinking like an AI generalist, because in 2025 and beyond, the most valuable skill won't be any single specialization. It will be the ability to harness AI to do what previously required entire teams. The opportunity is here. The tools are available. The future is waiting for those who are ready to seize it. Are you ready to become an army of one?
founded the environmental movement with the EPA and its various programs like wilderness zones and roadless areas and heritage rivers, wetlands, and all these other little different programs which all took vast areas of public lands and made them off limits to the American people, who are technically the owner of all those lands. But Nixon had no concern for the environment, and the real purpose of this land grab, under the guise of the environment, was to pledge those pristine lands and their vast mineral resources as collateral on the outstanding national debt. The multitude of all these different programs was simply to conceal the scale of the land grab and collateralization of the American people's heritage. And it actually today covers almost 25% of the entire nation, is now locked up by these EPA programs and pledged as collateral on government borrowing. Now, with open lands, available lands for collateralization already in short supply, the U.S. government embarked on a new program to shore up sagging international demand for the dollar. The United States approached the world's oil-producing nations, mostly in the Middle East, and offered them a deal. In exchange for only selling their oil for dollars, the United States would guarantee the military safety of those oil-rich nations. The oil-rich nations would agree to spend and invest their U.S. paper dollars inside the United States, particularly in U.S. Treasury bonds, which would be redeemable through future generations of U.S. taxpayers. The concept was labeled the petrodollar. In effect, the United States, no longer able to back the dollar with gold, was now backing it with oil, other people's oil. And that necessity to keep control over those oil nations to prop up the dollar has dominated America's foreign policy in the region ever since. But as America's manufacturing and agriculture has declined, the oil-producing nations faced a dilemma. Like France, they've got piles and piles of these paper notes and treasury bonds piling up in their vaults, and there really wasn't all that much except real estate they wanted to buy from the United States of America. Europe's cars and aircraft were superior and less costly. In more recent times, America's experiment with GMO food crops has led a lot of nations to simply avoid buying U.S. agricultural exports. Israel's constant belligerence against its neighbors has caused the oil-producing nations to wonder if the U.S. could actually keep their end of the petrodollar arrangement. So oil-producing nations started to talk of selling their oil for whatever currency the purchasers wanted to pay. Iraq, already somewhat hostile to the United States following Desert Storm, demanded the right to sell their oil for euros in 2000. In 2002, the United Nations agreed that Iraq had a right to sell their oil for euros under the Oil for Food program. 1 year later, 2003, the United States reinvaded Iraq, lynched Saddam Hussein, and placed Iraq's oil back on the world market, only available for U.S. dollars. Now, the clear U.S. policy shift following 9/11, away from at least attempting to appear to be an impartial broker of peace in the Mideast to one of unquestioned support for Israel's aggressions, only further eroded confidence in the petrodollar deal, and even more oil-producing nations started openly talking of trading their oil for other global currencies. So over in Libya, Muammar Gaddafi had instituted a state central bank and a value-based trade currency, the gold dinar. Gaddafi then announced that Libya's oil was for sale, but only for the gold dinar. Other African nations, seeing the rise of the gold dinar and the euro, even as the U.S. dollar continued its inflation-driven decline, flocked to the new Libyan currency for trade. This move had the potential to seriously undermine the global hegemony of the dollar. French President Nicolas Sarkozy reportedly went so far as to call Libya a threat to the financial security of the world. So the United States invaded Libya under the guise of supporting a popular rebellion. They brutally murdered Gaddafi, apparently because the object lesson of Saddam's lynching had not been enough of a message, imposed a private central bank, and returned Libya's oil output to dollars only. The gold that was supposed to be made into the gold dinars, as of the last report I could find, unaccounted for. Now, according to General Wesley Clark, the master plan for the dollarification of the world's oil nations included 7 targets: Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. Venezuela, which has started selling their oil to China for the yuan, seems to be a late addition. What is notable about those original 7 nations targeted by the U.S. is that none of them are members of the Bank of International Settlements. This is the private central banker's private central bank located in Switzerland. That meant that those 7 targeted nations were deciding for themselves how to run their nation's economies rather than submitting to the international private central bankers. Now, of course, the bankers' gun sights are on Iran, which dares to have a government central bank and sell their oil for whatever currency they choose. The war agenda for Iran is, as always, to force Iran's oil to be sold only for dollars and to force them to accept a privately owned central bank. Now, you have been raised by a public school system and a media that constantly assures you that the reasons for all these wars and assassinations are many and varied. We're bringing democracy to the conquered lands. We hear that a lot. When actually the U.S. hasn't. The usual result of a U.S. overthrow is the imposition of a pro-business, pro-Wall Street, pro-U.S. dictatorship. Good example, the 1953 CIA overthrow of Iran's democratically elected government of Mohammad Mossadegh and the imposition of the Shah. Or the 1973 CIA overthrow of Chile's elected government of President Salvador Allende and the imposition of the dictator Augusto Pinochet. Another one of the excuses we'll get is we have to save the people from a cruel oppressor. That's the one they're using in Syria right now. Revenge for 9/11. That was a big one going into Iraq. And then later on, President Bush was caught on video saying, no, Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. And behind all of them, that tired, worn-out, catch-all excuse for invasion, weapons of mass destruction. Assassinations are always passed off as crazed lone nuts to obscure the real agenda. And the real agenda of the bankers is very simple. It is enslavement of the people by creation of a false sense of obligation. Now, that obligation is false because the private central banking system by design creates more debt than money with which to pay the debt. There is no way out the way it's set up. It's impossible to escape as long as you're playing by their rules. And you need to understand, private central banking is not science. It is a religion. It's a set of arbitrary rules created to benefit the priesthood, meaning the bankers, and it is supported only because people believe this is the way it's supposed to be. It is a religion. It's a set of arbitrary rules created to benefit the priesthood, meaning the owners of the private central banks. The fraud persists with often lethal results only because the people are brainwashed into believing that this is the way life is supposed to be, and no alternative exists or should even be dreamt of. Now, this same approach, the same brainwashing, was true of two earlier systems of enslavement, rule by divine right and slavery, both systems built to trick people into obedience, and both now recognized by modern civilization as illegitimate. So now we are on the verge of a new era in history where we will recognize that rule by debt, rule by private central bankers issuing the public currency as a loan at interest is equally illegitimate. It only works as long as people allow themselves to believe that this is the way life is supposed to be. But you need to understand something that's the core of the issue. Private central banks do not exist to serve the people, the community, or the nation. Private central banks exist to serve their owners, to make them rich beyond the dreams of Midas, and all for the cost of ink, paper, and the right bribe to the right official, and the occasional assassination. But behind all these wars and all these assassinations, the 100 million plus horrible deaths from all of these wars, lies a single policy of financial dictatorship. The private central bankers only allow rulers to rule, only on the promise that the people of a nation be enslaved to the private central banks. Rulers who do not go along with that will be killed, their nation invaded by those other nations still enslaved to the private central banks. The bankers themselves don't fight these wars. Their children are not in these wars. A nation tries to break free of the private central bankers like Libya. All the other nations under the bankers' control pile on and destroy them. This so-called clash of civilizations you are being told about by the corporate media, it's really a war between banking systems, with the private central bankers forcing themselves onto the rest of the world, no matter how many millions must die for it. The constant hate-mongering against Muslims you see in the corporate media lies in a simple fact. Like the ancient Christians, prior to the Knights Templars, Muslims forbid usury or the lending of money at interest because they saw in ancient times, like Rome, how these banking practices could destroy an entire society. And that is the reason our government media insists that Muslims have to be hated and killed and converted. They refuse to submit to currencies loaned at interest. They refuse to be debt slaves. That makes them a threat to the natural order of the world, the new world order of global fascist dictatorship. So, off to war your children must go to spill their blood for the money junkies' gold. We barely survived the last two world wars. Now we're going into the third one in the nuclear bioweapon age. That is very dangerous. We have to ask ourselves, are the private central bankers willing to risk incinerating the whole planet to feed their greed? Apparently so. You as parents, as siblings, as spouses, need to ask yourself, do you really want to see your loved ones in uniform, killed and crippled, all for a bank balance sheet? But the whole point of this article, the whole point of what I'm sharing with you today, and this is all history, you can go out and hunt it down for yourself. Behind all the flag waving, behind all the propaganda, behind the crazed lone nut assassins, weapons of mass destruction, all of the modern wars this nation have fought are wars by and for the private bankers.
Welcome to this week's Money Metals podcast, helping gold and silver investors during these turbulent times. Now, this week's market wrap with commentary and analysis from Money Metals Exchange, a company named Best Overall Precious Metals Dealer by Investopedia.
Happy New Year and welcome to this week's Market Wrap podcast. I'm Mike Gleason. Coming up, don't miss a special interview with Money Metals CEO Stephen Gleason. Stephen gives our listeners an inside look at the market from our perch atop the retail U.S. bullion industry, including some interesting changes in both buying and selling patterns we've been seeing lately. Stephen also breaks down his top 5 tips for precious metals investors in 2025, especially newcomers to this growing market. A couple of those are particularly important because failing to heed them could actually lead to some big mistakes and financial losses. So be sure to stick around for a conversation with our CEO, Stephen Gleason, coming up after this week's market update. Well, gold and silver have been trading quietly, but with an upside bias this week as we turn the page to the new year. But oh, what a past year it was for gold and silver. Gold delivered a stellar performance in 2024, surging more than 27%, its strongest annual gain since 2010. Silver did well too, but ultimately could not keep up with gold, gaining about 19% on the year. Those are big gains, but this banner year for precious metals was overshadowed by even bigger gains in the general stock market and Bitcoin. Silver is the metal to watch going forward, as outperformance by the poor man's gold would signal that things are really heating up for the sector. Silver lagging gold is further evidence that we're only in the earliest stages of the bull market for bullion. From here, though, it may take a cooling of the stock market and a weakening of the Federal Reserve note dollar versus other fiat currencies before gold and silver surge much higher. Gold's strong performance, while the dollar held up well, has been unusual. A reversal lower in the dollar would create a tailwind for gold, silver, and commodities in general, and that's something we do foresee happening in 2025. At the moment, all markets seem without a clear direction. They're essentially in a wait-and-see mode while the new Donald Trump administration is installed this month. The next few months should certainly be interesting. In terms of the weekly prices during this shortened holiday week, gold is up about $20 or 0.8% since last Friday's close to come in at $2,654 an ounce. Silver, meanwhile, is up 1.2% and comes in at $29.95. Turning to the PGMs, platinum is up 1.3% to trade at $954. And finally, palladium commands $965 thanks to a 1.5% weekly advance as of this Friday morning recording. Well, now, without further delay, let's get right to our exclusive interview with Money Metals CEO Stephen Gleason.
Greetings, I'm Mike Meharry, a reporter and analyst here at Money Metals, and I'm here today with Stephen Gleason. Stephen is the president and CEO of Money Metals Exchange, a.k.a. my boss, and happy to be talking with you today. How you doing, Stephen?
Hey, Mike. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Great to be on your show.
It's great that you have a show that we can be on. I really appreciate it. It's been fun. It's been a learning experience for me talking to different people. So that's the beauty of being an interviewer. You learn as much as the audience does when you're talking to folks. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of great guests on, and thanks to you, we're really covering a lot of ground with the guests all year, all last year. So
yeah,
looking forward to. I know we got a few people booked for the next few weeks that are going to be really interesting. Some new people, and looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's kind of dig into the topics of the day, and since we're heading into a new year, we're right here at the beginning. Kind of looking back, we had a huge increase in the price of gold, big bull run, and I'm curious, just from a dealer standpoint, how has that kind of translated to the business side and from the perspective of physical demand here in the U.S.? I imagine it's kind of a mixed bag. When you get prices going up, I think that may create some benefits and then create some headwinds as well.
Yeah, it is a mixed bag, like you said. I mean, the reason for the price going up was not because of U.S. demand or even Western demand. It's been central bank demand. It's been Asian retail demand, institutional demand, mostly outside of the traditional, Western parts of the world, meaning Europe and the U.S. And, we did see a lot of retail and general demand in the U.S. in 2020, 2021, 2022, really kind of slowed down starting right at the end of that bank run situation we had at early 2023 with the regional bank crisis. There was a lot of interest in the U.S. For gold and silver, physical gold and silver, both from a retail standpoint, from ETFs and so forth. But really just the year and a half since then, which is when we really saw the big price moves in gold and even silver, was not driven by Western demand. So we saw a big run up in prices starting at the beginning or the end of 2023 and going into 2024, and then an acceleration in the second half of 2024. Those led to, believe it or not, actually more selling than we'd seen, more selling from retail investors, even, the ETFs and so forth. They finally started seeing a net inflow of buying, I believe, last fall. On the ETF side, we still have a big flow of new customers coming in, but there was a lot more selling. And I think it was a result of people who were sitting on gains, especially in gold. And I should mention, it was most gold selling, not silver selling. But there was more gold selling than we'd seen. We were still selling to customers more than we were buying, but on the whole, it was more selling back than we saw. And I think it was people sitting on, 30, 40% gains, maybe some impatience or frustration over the several years where, the expectations were high, but the price wasn't really moving. And then it moved big time and people were going ahead and taking some profits, or they needed the money. There's lots of factors, but it's been a very different environment for dealers in the last year here in the U.S. than it was, say, in 2020 or 2021, when it was just overwhelming demand, shortages, higher premiums. I guess the upside of the higher selling that we've seen back where people are disgorging of some of their holdings is that's caused the premiums to come back down. Mints have caught back up. In fact, mints are quite slow right now because there's so much metal that has come back, and therefore the secondary market is fully supplied, and that's caused premiums to fall, which has led to some really great deals. That now we're finding that people who are entering a position in gold or silver at least are paying a really very modest spread above the spot price, and that means they're putting most of their dollars into the actual metal. We have seen a little bit of a shift again since the election.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. So that's another factor. That's potentially a new economic environment, or certainly a new perception of where things are heading. We saw a little bit of I would say a 2 to 3 month run up in demand going into the election, where especially with the assassination attempt and so forth, there was a lot of anxiety. There was more bigger buyers coming in. We still saw more selling than usual, but we saw 2 or 3 months of really strong buying. And then since the election, I would say it's been quieter. We still have very high transaction volume, but the dollar amounts have been a little lower. And I think that the edge has come off and people are sort of in a wait and see mode. And, of course, we have lots of crazy things happening in the economy. We have ramping up of war drums, lots of things. But I think there's a little bit of a sigh of relief among many of the traditional retail investors with the election of Trump. And then we'll see what happens, as we head into 2025. But one thing we've learned in this market is that pretty much anything can happen that changes the dynamic, that it's almost like a light switch. Things will happen, black swans, unexpected things. And then everything changes quickly, and it can be tough to manage, frankly, because the flows are so dramatic and shifting.
Yeah. I think a lot of people with the election, I think there was a lot of anxiety about, are we going to have a hung election? Is this going to draw out? And when it was, relatively pain-free in terms of just the election process, I think that was a big sigh of relief for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think we were all just kind of like, wait a minute, where's the controversy around the result we were all expecting?
Yeah,
so I think that caught a lot of people off guard, which is interesting.
The other thing that I think is kind of interesting is you mentioned the big drive of demand being from the East and from Asia. And that kind of slacked off as we got into the late summer and into the fall. And that was, I think, a lot due to price sensitivity over there. And now we're starting to see a little bit of a shift back to where I just did an article today about Chinese demand has really picked up in the last, starting in November. So, and we've seen that the Chinese central bank start officially adding gold to their reserves. And of course, we know that they're adding plenty of gold outside of that. But it's interesting that it's almost like it's kind of rotating back to what we were seeing early in 2023.
I think some of it, China was a little bit cute about their accumulation. Our investigative reporter, Jan Neuenhaus, really kind of dug into the import-export statistics, and he found that, in fact, China had been accumulating pretty much all along, even though they weren't really publicly disclosing it. But what would be really interesting is when you have, and if you have, both the voracious demand in the East and from the central banks, which is huge, and obviously that's what's driven these big price moves in the last year, especially in gold, and obviously the silver's a little different.
Right.
But if you add the retail in and you add the West in, and now you have everybody buying, that is a combination that we haven't really seen. And so if that were to happen, then that's, I think, when things get really, really interesting. Because that's pretty rare.
Yeah, I agree completely. So one of the big things for us here at Money Metals over the last year is finally able to open the new bullion depository. And I guess the best way to describe it is big. Can you kind of tell folks about that? Because I think it's a really exciting thing.
Well, it's a culmination of a multi-year plan on the part of my business partners and I, and just response to the overwhelming demand that we've seen from our customers, but not just for physical gold and silver, platinum and palladium, but also for storage, and even in some cases, people who want to borrow against their gold and silver for business purposes. It's a much smaller thing. Most people don't do that, but most people aren't even eligible necessarily. Mm-hmm. But the storage business and people accumulating gold in a safe place outside of the banking system, outside of Wall Street, outside of New York, in Idaho, where our facility is, where there's a freedom-minded citizenry, there's a lot of armed people, there's low crime, and it's away from a lot of things that people are worried about, i.e. Washington, D.C. and the politicians. And so we've had just a tremendous amount of demand for storage space in our facility, and that's what drove the decision to build this massive 40,000 square foot depository. And it's the largest facility outside of New York, basically. And in terms of a private facility, it's twice the size of Fort Knox and the vaults at Fort Knox. Unlike Fort Knox, our gold is audited. We have both independent audits and internal audits all the time. We know it's all there. Our customers can come and even, view their holdings. They can do that remotely via Zoom or whatever, but also come and bring, see their containers. Everything is in traditional accounts is in segregated physical containers. So I feel like we've really built a tremendous integrated depository system that allows people not just to have low-cost storage that's highly secure, and so forth, but also the liquidity of being able to sell it back and get good pricing directly from Money Metals if they want to sell back to us. They don't have to. If you store with us, you can sell to anyone. You don't have to sell it to Money Metals, but it's pretty convenient and fast if you do, and the pricing, of course, is pretty much at the top notch, competitiveness. So, the whole combination has really been successful, and we're excited about the future of that. We have a massive amount already in our facility, but the amount of space that we have especially when it comes to gold, allows us to get into the hundreds of billions of storage if it gets to that.
Yeah. And it's really, like you said, it's really nice in terms of just making it easy to do transactions. So, if you want to buy and sell quickly, or even we've talked a little bit about, and I've written about folks who might want to lock in crypto profits. And, you can do that easily because Money Metals does accept payment in various cryptocurrencies.
Right,
so you can easily move in and out of gold and cryptocurrency and kind of use that as a way to hedge your earnings and kind of mitigate some of the volatility you get in those crypto markets. So I think that's a real big plus of having that kind of in-house storage.
Yeah, the part of the problem that we saw in the industry, and part of the reason that we built our depository, which we originally built in 2017 in a much smaller facility, and integrated everything from a system standpoint, is that most dealers, you're dealing with multiple parties, and the customer is really kind of in a tough spot because they're talking to the dealer, then they call the storage company, and then they're figuring out the storage company is not talking to the dealer, and they're trying to coordinate, and it's very inconvenient. It's slow, and it's the same thing when you sell. It's the same rigmarole, and so having everything under one roof, dealing with a cluster of companies that's providing this as a service is just very convenient, and it's amazing. Our competitors, of course, it's not that amazing. It's not easy to build your own depository, But it's certainly a service to the customer, we think, and we feel like we're doing a very good job with just making it seamless. Now, obviously, if you're holding physical metals, you shouldn't really be trading those. I mean, there are transaction costs, and if you want to trade metals, I wouldn't recommend, meaning buying and selling frequently. I wouldn't recommend holding physical, because the transaction costs do end up, even though it's efficient, it's not that efficient. That's where you use the electronic platforms and ETFs and so forth, which isn't recommended for a long-term hold, but there is some convenience there. But putting that aside, we're very smooth. The whole process is very smooth because we're integrated.
Yeah, and you're also eliminating the shipping middleman, and that's particularly poignant to me right now because I sent a package to Canada right before their postal strike, and it is still So who knows where it is.
I know. I sent a check to Canada to a business counterparty up there, not related to Money Metals, but on the personal side, and boy, it hasn't arrived. It's been like 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And they seem to be perfectly fine with that up there. Like, oh yeah, the strikes happen all the time. I guess it's the unions have even more of a stranglehold up there as they may have here.
I guess so. Well, it's not all right when you're in a hurry to get your package to someplace.
Yeah.
But, so let's kind of shift gears a little bit as we move into 2025, and we just published a pretty cool argument, not an argument, an article at moneymetals.com/news that people are going to want to check out. But I wanted to touch on some of these things because they are 5 precious metals tips for 2025. And I think it covers a lot of important ground. And I kind of wanted to go over those with you and get a little bit of your insight real quick on some of these things. And one of the first things that you say, and this is almost counterintuitive, I think, to a lot of people, but avoid precious metals dealers who are advertising on TV and using a celebrity spokesman. Now, you might think, well, hey, celebrity spokesman, that's, they're trusted. Well, why would we not? Yeah. Why would we not believe our beloved celebrity?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, this is almost without exception. This is what, this is a business model that a certain sector of our industry has. And that is to go on TV with celebrity spokespeople that they pay big endorsement fees to, because these people aren't cheap. These are celebrities. They're former actors. They're talk show hosts. And get them to be your pitch man for gold and silver. Use that trusted relationship that they have, trusting relationship with their viewers or with their fans, and then encourage people to get a free investor kit on gold and silver and set up a gold IRA and so forth. And these, I don't really fault the spokespeople because they don't, well, I mean, I do and I don't. I mean, they're not experts. They don't know the industry. They don't know that some of these folks are bad actors, really bad actors in some cases. And they're trying to monetize their name and their fame. And of course, there should be some due diligence. Hopefully, and some of these folks have, at times pulled away, but as they find out. But what really on the one hand, I'm obviously very much in favor of people being told about the benefits of gold and silver and the wealth protecting and inflation hedging benefits and so forth, and the the type of investment that's outside of the financial system and that's doesn't have counterparty risk and all that. And that's all great. So the messaging is fine as far as it goes on TV. But when you get into these sales funnels for these firms, you find that you get turned over to a commission-based, very aggressive sales staff that will hound you and try to get you on the phone, try to get you to commit, try to sell you on something. And usually, unfortunately, what they're doing is putting people into high premium marked up rare coins, proof coins, special commemorative, polar bear bullion coins at 100% over the price of gold or silver. And this is a self-perpetuating problem because the margins are so high that the profits are therefore so large and the commissions paid to these very aggressive salespeople are so large that, first of all, they're successful. And second, the celebrities, that's how they get paid. It's not cheap, number one, to advertise on Fox News, and it's not cheap to have some famous person as your spokesperson. The only way you can do that is if you're taking a huge pound of flesh out of your investors, quite frankly. And this is how we launched Money Metals in the first place, in opposition to this. We saw this happening. This has been going on for longer than 15. We've been in business for 15 years. And I saw this kind of thing happening, not just on TV, but other variations of this with celebrity spokespeople, high pressure salespeople, boiler room operations. And, bullion, which is the coins, bars, and rounds that are priced based on basically the metal value, the melt value or the spot price, and with a small premium, and it does vary from item to item, but it's not extreme, and it's in some cases it's nil. But these are the things that people should be buying, but the margins for the dealers are very small. The dealers that sell those are very small. The margins for these TV-based, proof coin selling, rare coin dealer type people are massive, 50%, 100%, 200%. And we've unfortunately seen a lot of negative blowback on the industry from regulators, from law enforcement, and lawsuits from private parties and so forth. And it kind of gives the whole industry a bad name because a lot of people are getting ripped off. And so anyway, I think I'm not saying that every single dealer on TV is doing this, but I think as a general rule of thumb, if you see somebody advertising on TV with a celebrity spokesperson, do not buy from them.
Yeah. I think the other thing people should be aware of too is just that whole bait and switch thing that you get. They'll advertise something, maybe a gold eagle or something that's real common and a low premium, and then they get you on the phone and they upsell you to, like you said, the polar bear coin that they're going to make this big markup on. And
and we see this stuff come back. So like, somebody sells it out of their IRA later, and I've seen these invoices that have come, they send, here's what I bought, here's what I paid. It's like, oh, wow, geez. There were some 10-ounce bars in there that were reasonably priced, but these polar bear bullion 1.5-ounce polar bear, Canadian special run Royal Canadian Mint coins that you paid 100% over spot. Gold has gone up about 100% since you bought those. So you're going to get your money back, but you didn't double your money. And of course, most of the time there's losses because the margins are so wide. It takes so much of a gain in price to break even. And it's really it's heartbreaking what is being done. And we encourage people, learn how to figure out what the melt value is. What is the spot price? How many ounces are in this? And what is the difference between what you're being asked to pay and that spot price? Right. And as long as you're paying a relatively close margin above that, and occasionally below, but usually not, but understand what that delta is, and also ask the question: if I were to sell this back to you today, what would you pay me? Yeah. And then you know what the spread is. Right. And obviously you can't hold them to that because market conditions change. 3 years from now or 3 months from now, it may be a different price. But you should be able to find out today. if I buy this from you for X, what X minus what is how much you're going to pay me when I sell back today.
Right, exactly. And, there's nothing wrong with, if you want to buy the polar bear coin because you think it's cool,
right.
But you need to understand the purpose of why you're buying this particular product. And, that's
right.
one good thing about the folks at Money Metals is they can help you, make those determinations about, hey, what's going to be the best that we can do, because they're not trying to upsell you to some crazy thing. Another thing that was in this article that I thought was interesting is that don't overlook the benefits of fractional gold, and that's something that I honestly don't know a whole lot about. So what are the benefits of maybe getting some fractional gold products?
Well, I think one of them is that you can get gold without having to buy a full ounce, and a full ounce now is $2,700. So it's beyond the reach of many people, especially if they want to buy very often or buy now. Of course, silver's there, and we can get into that too. But in terms of gold, you can buy a half-ounce gold round or gold bar or 1/10 ounce silver or gold coin. At a reasonable price. It's going to be more percentage-wise over the spot price than a 1 ounce bar or a 1 ounce coin, certainly more than a 5 or 10 ounce bar of gold. But it allows you to actually get your money out of Federal Reserve notes quicker, sooner. And when you sell back, typically the fractionals will have a higher premium, meaning they'll pay you more than spot when you sell it back. That said, I wouldn't put big money in fractionals, because if you have bigger amounts, you should buy 1 ounce coins and bars or 5 and 10 ounce. But if you have smaller amounts, fractionals are fine. And it allows you to accumulate more quickly. So other people look at it also as a potential barterable item. So in a real difficult scenario where you're actually having to spend your gold, it has the benefit of being a smaller increment. Again, silver plays a role there as well. There's also something called the gold back, which is using a technology that highly fractionalizes gold into these bill or note shaped objects that you can put into your wallet. And so that's an interesting fractional product. The premium is not that high given the technology and how small. But that said, it is there. So for example, a 1 gold back, which is 1/1000th of an ounce of gold. So that's about $2.70 of gold. You're going to pay almost $5 for that. So you see that is a pretty big markup percentage wise, but the benefit you're getting is a highly fractionalized form, and you probably can sell it back for way over the spot price.
Yeah. The cool thing about those two is I had actually somebody pay me for something in gold backs. And the gold backs that I received from that are worth a good bit more now than they were when I got them a couple of years ago, because, the dollars keep devaluing. I mean, the moment you get that dollar bill in your wallet, you're losing purchasing power. So definitely something to think about. And you mentioned silver. We'll kind of wrap it up with this. You said, don't forget about silver. And I think a lot of people do. I mean, I even do it when I'm writing. I tend to focus on gold. But how do you see the silver market kind of playing out in the next year or so?
Well, I think one way of looking at silver is leveraged gold. And leveraged in the sense that it goes up more than gold in a bull market, and it goes down more than gold in a bear market.
Right.
It's a smaller market, so it's more volatile. And the leverage in the market allows for increasing that volatility even more, and in the futures market and so forth. A little bit of money can move that market. It's not nearly as big a market globally as gold is. That said, silver, I believe, is more undervalued than gold. You can see from the ratio between the two, which is in the mid 80s. Might actually almost it's even higher than that. It's near 90.
Yeah.
That's a historically very high ratio of the price of gold to silver. And typically in a bull market, as it matures or develops, halfway through or thereabouts in a bull market, silver will start slingshotting much faster up. We haven't not seen, to the extent we're in a bull market in gold, and we definitely are in the last year with the breakout above 2,000. And we have seen silver move during that period of time, but it's barely kept up with gold. And that tells me that the bull market is still very young because silver starts outperforming later. I really like silver because of the other variables around it. Number one, it's one of the lowest priced commodities compared to what it was in 1980 I think it's the lowest. It's actually done the worst. So maybe that's, not good for silver, but in terms of its potential, I think it's highly undervalued. There's some interesting supply demand characteristics. One is it's supply inelastic and it's demand inelastic. And most of its production comes from a byproduct of other metals. And so a higher silver price does not really necessarily bring out more silver because most silver is produced by copper mines and zinc mines and gold mines and lead mines. And those are the economics that drive those mines, not the silver price. So you could have silver go to $50 or $100 and it won't make hardly any difference in the financial incentives around silver mining. Because 80% of it comes as a byproduct. So that's one thing that makes it very interesting. One of the reasons it could be such an extreme reaction when it finally does take off. Another is just the utility of silver and all the different things that it's being used in, from solar to electronics to medical uses because of its properties as the best natural biocide. It's the best reflector of light. It's the best conductor of electricity. It's money, which is sort of coming back as the idea that silver is slowly being remonetized, or at least in an investment sense, maybe not in terms of being added to the currency again. But it has both the monetary qualities and then these incredible industrial benefits. And so that just makes it a metal that gets whipsawed around a lot. All these things make it very volatile. But I think for longer term money, you definitely want to have exposure to silver. And so there's been a lot of talk about gold. Gold's at all-time highs. Central banks are accumulating gold hand over fist. Silver is we just don't think you should forget about it. And I would say about 30 to 40% of our total sales volume in dollars is in silver. So it is dominated by gold. But I do see that changing. And I think, as it really starts performing up to the expectations that people have, and then maybe even exceed those expectations, we'll see a lot of new demand come in. We haven't seen that yet. But silver's been holding its own.
Silver's my apocalypse, hedge. That's the thing that I think that, if we did have a scenario where you had a true meltdown of in society, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily in the cards, but you can't ever rule it out. I definitely want to have silver because I think that's going to be the easiest thing to barter. And as you mentioned, it is money. It is fundamentally money, just like gold is. And I thought it was interesting. A few months ago, Russia announced that it's going to begin holding silver in its reserves. So, it'll be interesting to see if other countries maybe follow suit on that.
Well, it's a strategic metal. It has, because of these properties, and even if it's not a monetary reserve, it has vital uses. It's not easily replaced.
Right.
And I think, with the emphasis around, high technology and AI and solar and all these things that are sort of developing, silver is a big part of all of that.
Yeah, and it's huge in defense as well. I mean, a lot of weapon systems and missiles and all of that type of stuff are pretty silver intense. So I'm bullish on silver as well. So let me get you out on this one last question, and you can make this pretty quick though. But what is something that you're kind of eyeballing as we move into 2025 that you think a lot of people are missing in terms of the gold and silver market, or maybe even just the economy in general?
Yeah, I think that interest rates. I think that we've had a little bit of a cooling in the markets because of a concern that the Fed is not going to cut rates. I personally believe they're going to be cutting rates like crazy. And I think that that's going to just put fuel on the fire for inflation and gold and silver prices when it becomes clear. that they're going to continue cutting rates and cutting them dramatically, and that they're willing to accept high levels of inflation, and they're willing to accept higher long-term interest rate. They're willing to accept the consequences of cutting on the short end, which might mean that, the long end goes up. I think they're perfectly comfortable with that. I think they're, right now posturing that they will be less aggressive on rate cuts, but I think that's out the window. The amount of debt that has to be financed, inflation is the only solution to this. Yeah. I mean, and once the people realize it's all a charade, this whatever hawkishness that they're trying to put out there, I think that's going to be kind of a switch flipping towards hard assets in general just going crazy, and gold and silver will probably be the biggest beneficiaries of that. Yeah. So I think that's what I look to see by the end of the year. I'm not necessarily saying we're going to see, big rallies here in the spring, although seasonally you do see gold and silver do well in the spring. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of it's being driven by the Fed, unfortunately, and I think a misunderstanding that they really have no choice. They're going to have to inflate, and they're going to have to cut rates, and hard assets are going to boom when that happens.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I tell people all the time that we have a debt-riddled bubble economy that is addicted to easy money. And you can't take the drug away from the drug addict without doing serious damage. And I think they're aware of that. So they're trying to jawbone and make everybody think, oh, yeah, we're worried about inflation. But I think you're right. When it comes down to that choice, they're going to pick inflation every time. So
yeah, and just sort of one aspect of that, there's been a lot of optimism around the cutting of the federal government. And the idea that we can make it more efficient. And obviously there are some opportunities, and hopefully some things will be done. But I think that the optimism is way overblown of what can be achieved there. I spent 15 years working in Washington in public policy, and it is a road with no turns from the federal bureaucracy, the federal spending. It's a one-way street. They can't stop it. The bureaucracy is completely uncontrollable. You have bad laws, and then you have people that are big government people managing those bad laws. And there's many layers of entrenched bureaucrats all the way down. Even if Trump and all of his politicals, got all in place and they're all in sync, to be able to change the direction of that with all of these people undermining you at every step, leaking to the press, cutting your throat, absolutely refusing to do what they're told to do. They can't be fired very easily, if at all. Civil service protections, unions. I mean, anyway, so that's another maybe aspect of this in terms of the federal budget problem and the deficits. I don't think that we're going to be that successful in reducing government, or, we may slow the increase, but I have to be, unfortunately, I'm pretty cynical about the potential there.
Yeah, I'm with you too. And it's not, people, I've said that to some people and they get mad because they say, "Oh, you don't believe in Trump." It's not even that. It's as you say, it's the structural integrity of the system. It is what it is. And I like to use this analogy. You've got a car that's broken down on the side of the road, and the battery's gone and the tires are blown out, and you're not going to fix that by putting a new driver in the driver's seat. The problem is more fundamental than that. I think,
as much as I'm very enthusiastic about what he stands for when it comes to pushing back against these things, and with Musk and Vivek and all that. I mean, I'm rooting for them, but I'm keeping a realistic view, I guess, is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to chat with me. And normally at this point, I ask people to point where they would like people to go, but moneymetals.com is the place.
That's the place.
You'll want to check out our news section, and we have great articles on there every day, just like the one I referenced. I did not go through all 5 of the tips, so you'll want to go to moneymetals.com/news and check out all 5 of the tips as we move into 2025. And then also, of course, you can buy gold and silver online right from moneymetals.com and learn more about what we're doing. So I appreciate you, Stefan. I appreciate the work that you're doing and the integrity that you bring to a business that can sometimes be a little bit shady, let's be honest. So it's an honor for me to be able to work with the great team, and so appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike, and we're looking forward to 2025 and what it brings.
All righty.
Welcome to SecureBankBox, the ultimate solution for managing credit risk and UCC filings. Our powerful platform leverages SaaS and PaaS models to automate credit reporting and streamline processes. Ideal for banks, creditors, and businesses, SecureBankBox offers secure and scalable infrastructure at your fingertips. Experience seamless integration with cutting-edge technologies like blockchain and smart contracts. Our user-friendly SaaS interface makes data management and analysis a breeze, while PaaS allows for complete customization. Enjoy advanced features like audit trails and incentivization to ensure transparency and engagement. With SecureBankBox, bid farewell to manual errors and hello to compliance and innovation. Empower your institution today and be part of building a collaborative financial ecosystem. Unlock the potential of seamless integration with the Mint UCC training manual for civil law notaries. Discover pricing structures that fit your needs with our custom integration services. Whether you're just starting out or a large enterprise, we've got you covered with tiered plans from basic to enterprise. Handle high-volume activities effortlessly with our detailed per-transaction fees. Need something specialized? We've got additional options for custom blockchain integrations. Tailor your workflows with ease and efficiency like never before. Stay ahead of the curve with our comprehensive and flexible solutions. Elevate your notary services today with the Mint UCC Training Manual, your pathway to excellence. Unlock the future of finance with our course on mastering DeFi and Web3 technologies. Dive into the revolutionary world of decentralized finance and open, permissionless financial systems. Learn to manage crypto wallets, invest in decentralized assets, and interact with smart contracts. Our comprehensive course offers hands-on exercises and real-world case studies tailored for all skill levels. Discover how to build DeFi investment strategies and participate in yield farming, staking, and liquidity pools. Gain practical experience with top DeFi platforms and Web3 tools, guided by industry experts. Whether you're an investor, developer, or entrepreneur, this is your gateway to the future of digital finance. Enroll today and be at the forefront of the decentralized finance revolution at 4usdigital.onlinecoursehost.com.